Well, we really want to thank Angus Scrimm for coming out to Tucson tonight. Angus, of course, starred in 4 Phantasm films and has starred in a number of other horror and non-horror films on television. He was on Alias, if you remember him on there. You remember him from The Masters of Horror, the premiere episode that Don Coscarelli directed. He actually has a really fascinating career as a journalist. He's a Grammy winner, which I didn't realize.
Yes.
And I also, a tidbit that I found out that he played Abraham Lincoln once. So maybe we'll talk about that. But first I just want to kind of start things off with a question to Mr. Scrimm, if I could. Okay. So, Mr. Scrimm, you seem so nice, and I'm just wondering how you got involved with playing the world's most evil person.
Well, nice is my public persona. Actually, I'm very intelligent. How did I get involved with Don? Oh my. Well, I had worked off and on. As Jeff said, my first film was right after I got out of college, way back, long before any of you were born or even thought of being born. And it was the Encyclopedia Britannica, little educational film about Abraham Lincoln. But then I worked as a journalist for a while because my other love was journalism. And for about 10 years I was on the staff of Capitol Records writing notes on the backs of LPs. Anybody remember LPs? And later compact disc booklets. In the era when Capitol had Frank Sinatra, Nat Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Judy Garland, Peggy, a whole roster of glittering star names. It was thrilling to be there and go to the recording sessions. But then they got the Beatles, and I wrote the first Beatles note. But then when rock really took over and the star singers ceased to sell quite as well, the producers of Capitol, most of them were big band men, didn't quite know what to do, and Capitol fell on hard times, and so I dropped out and started writing for them freelance and doing some acting again. And one of the first jobs I got was in answer to a 1-inch ad in the Hollywood Reporter for a casting session at the big Century Plaza Hotel. So I thought, well, it's going to be not too bad. Century Plaza. There were these 2 teenage boys sitting behind a long table in a conference room when I got there. And they asked me to come down to Long Beach and do some video tests. It turned out to be Don Coscarelli and a classmate of his named Craig Mitchell, who were doing a film, a drama about a high school boy whose mother has run off with another man and dad is an alcoholic, and he's the sole support of his family, including his little brother, called Jim the World's Greatest, ultimately. Gregory Harrison was the star. You know Gregory? Gregory Harrison? On television. So that was my first film with Don. And his dad financed it. As he may have told you, he was there. He must have talked about this. His dad financed it, and Universal Studios picked it up and released it. And it was not a great hit, but it was respectable. So then, when he started to do a horror film, because I had played a villain in that one, I was his first choice to play the villain in the next one. And thus began the Phantasm saga. Does that answer your question? I tend to ramble on.
Please ramble. I'm also wondering how collaborative the creation of the Tall Man was between you and Don. Did he come up with that concept? Did you add something to make him what he became?
I have here, and I haven't read them for ages, these are photocopies of the journals I kept all the time we were shooting Phantasm. And it's filled in the early episodes, it's filled with frustration that I feel what I am doing is just making faces, stock hollow faces at the camera, and not knowing what character to play. But as we went on and on, the character of the Tall Man began to evolve. We had discussions going on, and that's in here too, sometimes. So it wasn't all on paper initially. In fact, I think there's an entry where Don seems puzzled in which direction to go with the film. But Don was always open-minded and open-eared to any comments anyone wanted to make, and sometimes incorporated them. But Phantasm is basically Coscarelli, as are all his films. You can feel his stamp from the Coscarelli films. So, whatever he borrows from someone else, he makes his own.
Well, this is going to reveal how much of a geek fan I am for this film, but I believe you have 5 lines in the movie, and maybe 28 words. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost a silent performance. And I'm wondering if you thought about the great horror actors like Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff in terms of that kind of silent physical performance, which is much different than horror now, which is very verbal and violent.
Well, I was dismayed that I had no more lines. But in retrospect, I do think the fact that he had so few lines added to the sinister quality of the character, and that he might have become just a little less sinister in the sequels when they, because I was going around to every convention in the country complaining that I had no dialogue in the first picture, so he gave me more. I'm not sure it was a good idea.
I was going to ask you one more thing about the character of the Tall Man. How did you feel that the character progressed over the course of the films? Were you happy with them sort of revealing more about his backstory, or did you think that he should have remained more in history?
Well, as an actor, I was delighted to play